Hello, my name is Alan Boulding and I'm the Director of Technical Marketing on the Cisco security team. The Identity Services Engine offers one policy control point for identity and access control. It provides device security for wired, wireless, and VPN networks. ICE also serves as a TrustSec controller to define TrustSec policy. And TrustSec is a tagging technology used to segment a network and to limit access to critical resources. TrustSec does not rely on conventional enforcement mechanisms such as VLANs and access control lists that are highly labor intensive and sometimes prone to error. In a TrustSec solution, ICE contextually categorizes users by role, device type, username, and so much more. And once categorized, ICE pushes a tag to a router, switch, or controller, and it is that tag that is used to determine appropriate policy. One use case of TrustSec is controlling access to a data center. In this use case, a Cisco switch or firewall is used with TrustSec technology to control access to the data center resources. Now, when compared to traditional firewall rules or access control lists on a switch, TrustSec dramatically simplifies and reduces the operational expenses associated with managing who gets access to what resources. In this slide, I'm showing a traditional firewall rule up on top. Two policy objects are defined for a finance group and another one for an engineering team. Now, whenever there is a new employee or location or subnet associated with the finance group, the policy object needs to be updated. And it is for this fundamental reason it is not uncommon to see a firewall rule table that can exceed up to 100,000 entries. Now, another problem I see with some customers is that no firewall rules are ever deleted and the table becomes completely unmanageable. And this can impact the performance of the firewall as ternary CAM resources become exhausted. Now, consider the SGA firewall on the bottom. The first thing you will note is that there are no IP addresses nor VLANs. And since there are no IP addresses or VLANs, the rules are topology independent and written in terms of easy-to-read policy. Furthermore, you will notice that a rule can be created that is not merely a user group, but can include a device as well. Here I show a finance user who is using a company-provided asset having access, but when the same user uses an iPad, he is restricted. I think, though, that what is most exciting is that the savings can be huge. I have one customer, for example, who mentioned that he was able to reduce his operational costs from 24 people down to 6, and the total number of ACEs was collapsed by 60 to 90%. In my demo setup, I have ASDM using to control my firewall rules. I have a VM set up to represent my finance corporate PC. And I have my iPad, which represents my personal asset. And I have a rule that says finance corporate PC is allowed to have access to my finance resources, while my personal iPad is not allowed to have access. So now, if I'm a finance guy, Frank, say, let's go ahead and log in to my Windows 7 PC, which is a corporate-owned asset. So I log in, open up my browser, and I'll enter in my location that I created, which is finance, which is my finance web server, and you could see that I have access. Furthermore, I turned logging on, and you can see the log that also says that I am permitted access from my finance corporate PC to my finance web servers, where this is my finance web server. Okay, now let's do exactly the same thing on my personal asset, that is Frank's personal asset. So we bring up his iPad, we log in as Frank, as we did before, using exactly the same password. We'll now bring up Safari, and we will go to the same location, FIN, which is my finance web servers. And as you can see, we're blocked, as well as up here you see the log, which is the deny access for Finance iPad coming over to Finance web servers. Well, thank you, and that concludes my demonstration, and hopefully you could see how firewall rules can be greatly simplified while providing very granular access, all in a way that can substantially reduce the operational expenses to manage those firewalls.